Boston Red here on the 23rd of October 2013. The title of our episode is the Michael Brown Autopsy. It has been leaked to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and like many leaks out there, what they really want to do is muddy up the water to give you some conjectures. And we'll get to the actual autopsy here in a minute. In Kansas City tonight, the World Series is now tied. The Kansas City Royals 7-2 over the San Francisco 49ers. Over the San Francisco Giants. Hope not the 49ers. So the series now returns to San Francisco, and we'll start to play it on Friday night. And it'll be there for 3 nights. One of the farcical things that occurs, the All-Star game, who wins it and who does not, determines where the Fall Classic will be. And the American League pulled it out, so it's in the American League Park. What we used to do was the winner of the World Series, the National League or the American League. Of course, I'm a National League fan. Being a Cubs fan, we're rooting for the Giants. We sometimes switch a little depending on what the teams are. But we are with the Giants all the way there. And, of course, Kansas City being a sort of a Cubs of, well, they're both in baseball, but the Cubs have not had the wins. Kansas City goes back to the 80s when the former and late manager there, I can't think of his name right now, was there and had some fantastic days, Willie Wilson, etc. And they were able to win a World Series. So it has been a long time for Kansas City. Whereas San Francisco has stayed around very close. In the last 5 years, they've either been in the World Series or the National League Championship Series. So it has been a different story, the tale of, one would say, 2 cities there. The 2 football teams, though, have not been eventful, as one would say. So, thus, they've been out of it. But let's go to St. Louis, Missouri, and we'll look at this autopsy. We'll start out with it here. The Dispatch got it, and I'm amazed the Dispatch had the audacity to copyright the finding. But it's from St. Louis County. It's on Hanley Road and in St. Louis, Missouri. And this is Michael Brown, the exam case, 2014-5143. At 13:30 hours, it was contacted by Sergeant Stibera of the St. Louis County Police, as he requested that I respond to 2949 Canfield for an officer involving in the shooting of Mr. Michael Brown, an African male of 18 years. The deceased mother was on the scene. The deceased was properly conveyed to the facility for examination by Norfleet, Dr. Norfleet. Deceased was, I arrived at, we don't go over this again. We're reading from the actual autopsy itself. At the scene he arrived, wait a minute here. He was contacted. Okay, he arrived at the scene at 14:30. That is 2:30, which is located in the Canfield Apartments. Was met by numerous officers of the St. Louis County Police Department and directed my attention to the deceased, who was located in the middle of the road with his head pointing west and his feet east. The deceased had been covered with several white sheets. The deceased was lying in a prone position. His right arm was slightly extended away from his side. His left arm was next to his side. His lower arm was beneath his abdomen, and his head was near his hand. Was near the waistband of his shorts. He was clothed in a pair of yellow socks, tan short blue underwear, and gray T-shirt. The deceased shoes, flip-flops, were west of the deceased, lying in the roadway. A red baseball cap was near the police vehicle. Now, we saw him not in that, but I believe we saw him in slacks. Some of the people get back to us on Facebook on this. The deceased was cold to the touch. Rigor mortis was slightly felt in his extremities. That just means in the summertime, in the heat of Missouri, he had been there a long time. The deceased's body had sustained multiple gunshot wounds, 3 wounds to the head. 1 wound was to the top of the head, the right eye, and right center forehead. There were 2 wounds to his chest and one wound to his upper right chest near his neck, and the other one was just right of his breast. 3 wounds to the right arm, and 1 to his upper right arm and middle arm, and 1 to the forearm. 1 wound was to the inside of his right hand near his thumb and palm. The deceased had abrasions on the right side of his face and on the back of his left hand. The deceased's hands were bagged with paper bags to save any trace evidence. Make sure I'm going along here because I'm reading this online here. Okay. It was reported that the deceased's mother, Leslie McSpadden, was on the scene, identified deceased, and she identified a tattoo which read Big Mike in capital letters. Well, the Mike is in capital. On his right forearm. It was unknown at the time if she visually identified the deceased or only described the tattoos. I did observe the tattoo on his right arm. Detective Hokamp of the St. Louis County Police, that's spelled Hokamp, provided the following preliminary details. The deceased and another individual were walking down the middle of Canfield Drive. Officer Wilson, DSN 609 of the Ferguson Police Department, observed the 2 individuals. He requested them to get out of the roadway. The deceased began belligerent towards Wilson. As Wilson attempted to exit out of his patrol car, the deceased pushed the door shut and began to struggle with Wilson. During the struggle, the officer's gun was unholstered and it discharged during the struggle. The deceased then ran down the roadway. That's not disputed by witnesses. Officer Wilson then began a chase to chase the deceased. As he was giving chase to the deceased turned and ran towards him. Now that is disputed. The officer Wilson had his service weapon drawn. As the deceased began to run towards him, he discharged his service weapon several times. You just heard that preliminary information. At this preliminary information, it was not known which order or how many times the officer fired his weapon. Now, that was a preliminary type. Let's get to some other types. We won't get into the whole thing, but what we will get into here it was Michael Brown. He was 18 years old. Where he lived and worked. And let me just zip on down here. This was the deceased, was Mr. Brown. He was pronounced dead at 12:15 p.m. There. He was born on May the 20th, 1996. The investigator is Wendell Payne. The doctor in charge there. A pathologist was Gresham Norfleet, M.D. External examination. The body is clothed in a pair of yellow stockings with black leaves. Brown shorts with pockets. Blue underwear, a gray t-shirt. The body weight is 289 pounds. His height 77 inches. It's over 6 feet. The state of preservation is good in his unarmed body. Rigor mortis is well developed. The body is heavier than the ideal weight based on the BMI scale of 34.2 kilograms. Liberty is difficult to access due to normal skin pigmentation. There is no peripheral edema present. That's water in the system. Personal hygiene is good. No unusual odor is detected as the body is examined. There is no abnormal skin pigmentation. There is no external lymphatic path present. The hair is black. The body hair is normal male distribution. The pupils of the left eye is round and regular and equal and dilated. The right eye cannot be accessed due to an acute trajectoral wound, injury, gunshot. The iris of the left eye is brown. The teeth are in a fair state of repair. The gums are normal. The external ears are normal in appearance without injury. The neck is symmetrical and without masses of unusual mobility. Prior to the acute injury of the chest and back were symmetrical also, with normal conformities. Prior to acute injury of the right arm, the upper and lower extremities were symmetrical. I'm sorry, why did I call it? Anyway, the hands are covered with the brown paper bags. We talked about that before. And let's go on a little bit more of this. Injuries. There's gunshot entry wound to the vortex of the scalp. I wonder, did we miss anything here? They've got their little red sign here. There's a scar near the right 5 that measures 0.3 centimeters in the greatest direction. We won't go into scar. There's a gunshot wound to the vortex of the scalp. There's a gunshot entry wound on the center of the forehead. There's a gunshot exit wound of the right jaw. There is a gunshot exit wound of the upper right chest. There's a gunshot exit wound on the lateral right chest. There's a gunshot entrance wound on the upper vertical right arm. There's a gunshot exit wound on the upper dorsal right arm. There's a gunshot wound on the dorsal right forearm. There is a gunshot wound on the middle vertical right forearm. There is a triangular glazed gunshot wound on the right bicep. There is a generalized glazed gunshot wound near the vortex surface of the right thumb. This is what they talked about, his thumb and the struggle for the gun. So this we want to be very careful about. There's an abrasion present near the right forehead that measures 7 centimeters in the greatest direction. There's dried abrasion present near the lateral right face. It measures 3.5 centimeters. The abrasion present near the upper right cheek that measures, again, this is 3 centimeters also. There's an abrasion present near the upper right chest that measures 1 by 0.2 centimeters. The dried abrasion present near the left thumb that measures 0.2 centimeters in its greatest dimension. There's an abrasion near the dorsal surface of the left wrist there. We won't go into the specific injuries there. The wound is located at 20 centimeters above the level of the right external auditory meatus and near the midline of the vortex of the head. I don't think people would be into that, but going down here, there's a gunshot wound of the right jaw. It's located at 5.5 centimeters. There's a gunshot wound of the upper right chest. It's located at 16 centimeters below the level of the right auditory meatus and 9 centimeters right of the arterial midline of the chest. The hole in its greatest dimension is more prominent near the superior-inferior border of the wound.